Hello friends, welcome back. Welcome back with yet again a very important thought process associated with strategic management and strategically managing value chains. Last time we talked about fortune at the bottom of the pyramid. Imagine value chains associated with the bottom of the pyramid. Imagine the different kinds of products which can be made, or brought into the reach of the bottom of the pyramid while we are trying to lift the bottom towards higher level. So, eradicating poverty and serving the world's poor profitably. Imagine there are several kinds of products which we are trying to take out to them. First, it was tried by many companies by reducing the prices in terms of bringing sachets and those kind of products for them. Medicine manufacturers or producers, pharmaceutical companies, they try to do that with the help of support of government, as well as developing medicines which could be brought to the poorest of the poor for supporting them by reducing the prices, or with the help of newer innovations and technological developments, research and development and so on. Several kinds of new salts were developed, and I am no expert on that, but still people tried. Several kinds of newer agriculture processes were being developed, several kinds of farm equipment was being developed, several kinds of non-farm professions were being developed. Urban poverty was being looked upon with a different kind of a perspective and all inclusive perspective. Housing was being developed and housing solutions were being developed, education and so on. Several kinds of organizations, they started including themselves into that kind of a situation, and happily so. World is moving towards that situation wherein poverty is being dealt with a different kind of a perspective with the help of market development approach. And now here is capitalism at the crossroads. Professor Prahalad and Professor Stuart Hart have been contemporaries. They have regarded each other a lot. They have extended their respects for each other. They have mentioned each other in their papers and books. They have referred to each other in their papers and books, and they have been very respectfully promoting each other's thoughts for putting up a perspective around making this world a better place through a different kind of a strategic approach. Let us see what Stuart Hart says when he talks about capitalism at the crossroads. And Hart, in his book Capitalism at the Crossroads, describes the global situation and establishes the business case for pursuing strategies that aim to solve social and environmental problems. You see how complementary they have been. He talks about, Professor Prahalad talks about poverty eradication by reaching out to the markets and developing inclusive growth in terms of market development simultaneously by bringing in people on board. And here Professor Hart talks about solving social and environmental problems by pursuing strategies, establishing a business case for pursuing strategies in that direction. It also outlines the challenges and opportunities. The book which he wrote also outlines the challenges and opportunities that remain to be addressed, which involve the development of new, more sustainable technologies. Now this is very important, development of new, more sustainable technologies and the needs of the billions of people who have been largely bypassed thus far by globalization. It's very interesting when we are talking of such kind of things, basically at large. Now let us see what the book talks about. This is Hart, 2005, Capitalism at the Crossroads, the unlimited business opportunities in solving the world's most difficult problems, Pearson Education. And here the author says that nearly 3 decades ago, environmentalists made this simple but powerful observation. This he was talking in 2005, so that means he is referring to 3 decades back, means somewhere in 70s. So the total environmental impact I created by human activity on the planet is a function of 3 factors. One is population, that is P. The second is affluence, A, which is a proxy for consumption. The thought is that you have a buying capacity and you consume more. Technology, T, which is how wealth is created, producing more, selling more, and it goes that way. That is how some technological infusion, and then you see anyone can use that, and whosoever consumes, the cumulative consumption is supported by technological development, because when we talk of farm produce, for example, so technology is supported there. When we talk about several other kinds of things, production, raising the levels of automotive manufacturing, cloth manufacturing, production at large. The total environmental impact of human activity, that is I, can thus be expressed as a formula: P population into affluence, which is proxy for consumption. So, P into A multiplied by A multiplied by T, that is technology. So, that is the premise which author talks about. So, environmental impact is calculated this way, as the author has observed and talked about in his book Capitalism, the Crossroads. Now, he further adds that achieving sustainability will require stabilizing and ultimately reducing the human impact on the planet. If you have to reduce the impact, then you have to somehow require to stabilize the situation. We can do that by drastically decreasing the human population, lowering the level of affluence consumption, or fundamentally changing the technology used to create wealth, effectively moving technology T into the denominator of the formula. That is an interesting thought, that this is the impact. To reduce the impact, these factors have to be reduced, or technology has to be brought in as a denominator. Very logical, but how to do that? It is an irreversible process which we have gone for. So, we have tried to check upon the population growth as such, but is it helping? We have yet to see. And then consumption levels, all the organizations which have been manufacturing, and definitely if you will go by the last 5 decades of data, you would realize that most of the organizations, they have been focusing upon scaling up. And probably that is where also blue ocean strategy and fortune at the bottom of the pyramid, and I would be talking about the development as freedom by Professor Amartya Sen, and we would be looking at it with a market kind of or strategic kind of a perspective, although it is a very large kind of a thought process which encompasses so many kinds of things as far as human development and capabilities goes, because he talks about capabilities, and capability, which is certain set of functionings which a person desires for. So, we will be talking about that. But again, the point is that all these things, when we talk of, largely have to be counter effective in terms of whatever has been thought of till now. So, that is why these divergent thought processes are important for us to understand. As both population and affluence are factors whose reduction is not immediately feasible, that is what I am saying, it is irreversible kind of a process. Changing the technology used to create wealth becomes our major way for sustainability. Using technology to the advantage of people. For example, we have started moving towards renewable energy more as compared to fossil fuel based kind of energy. So, we can't reduce the level of consumption, because on the one side we have been always saying that per capita energy consumption must increase, and if we go by that, then fossil fuel based kind of an energy development would not help us. So, that is why whole of the world is moving towards renewable energy as such. So, that is where Professor Stuart Hart has been talking about, and that was in 2005 when he talks about past 3 decades or so. So, 1975 kind of situation, which wherein the process actually got initiated and many intelligent people started contributing towards that, and now whole of the world is focusing upon that. And did I mention about Professor Chetan Solanki and those kind of people who have devoted their lives to this kind of a cause? Yes, I did in some of my lectures. The global economy is composed of 3 different overlapping economies. Now, he looks at the global economy with 3 overlapping economic realities, I would say. So, he calls them 3 overlapping economies: the money economy, the traditional economy, and nature's economy. And let us see, it is very interesting basically, because you see these intelligent authors and contributors and thinkers, and I prefer to call them thinkers of our contemporary times, who have contributed a lot in these kind of thought processes, they could visualize that is the most important part, which we probably are unable to do. So, they visualize how this global economy can be seen with 3 different kinds of perspectives which have an overlap as far as the whole scenario goes. Let us see what he says. So, the money economy, he says, is the familiar world of industry and commerce comprising both the developed economies and so called merging economies. The money economy leaves a large ecological footprint defined as the amount of land and resources required to meet a typical consumer's needs. The traditional economy is the village-based way of life found in the rural parts of the most developing countries. Owing in part to the rapid expansion of the money economy, existence in the traditional economy is becoming increasingly precarious. Indigenous cultures, once able to live in a self-sufficient manner based upon the principles of community, frugality and sufficiency, have been irreversibly changed by the introduction of cash and wage employment. You see, he is trying to draw our attention towards the money economy, the money based kind of an economy, the traditional economic situations which we have been living with in terms of developing countries and community based kind of a development, or economies which we nurtured. And he says that when it goes towards cash and wage employment, then the situation started getting changed. Otherwise, we were living in a cohesive kind of a situation. We still are moving towards that kind of a situation wherein community strengths have been now exemplified, and we are trying to once again motivate people to live in community systems and to nurture that kind of a thought wherein micro and small and medium enterprises, and especially micro and household based enterprises, are being motivated by several kinds of agencies, especially government and definitely Government of India. The third economy is nature's economy, which consists of natural systems and resources that support the money and the traditional economies. Now, money and traditional economies are being supported by nature's economy. In fact, money and traditional economies are actually embedded in nature's economy because the former could not exist without the latter. Raw material, resources, all those things are being provided to us by the nature. And if you will look into this situation, this element which Professor Stuart Hart is trying to demonstrate here, is most of the times we have been extracting from the nature almost everything for as far as our needs go. For our mining based kind of products, basically we have been extracting from the earth. We have been for agriculture we have been resorting to earth. For different kinds of things we have been resorting to sea. For different kinds of things we have been resorting to rivers. So, nature has been the major provider. Hydroelectricity, to as far as transportation, to fisheries, to agriculture, irrigation requirements, drinking water, almost everything. Rivers are the reason. Seas are the reason for transportation, for fisheries, for n number of things basically, and land is the major most resource wherein we have been resorting to land for almost everything, starting from minerals to real stones to gemstones to several kinds of things. You know better basically. You can list them and you would realize there are very few things which we claim that we have developed for ourselves, and that too without harming the nature. Increasing demands of two economies are surpassing the sustainable yields of ecosystems that underpin them, and the money and traditional economies are slowly destroying their own support system. And that is the scenario which now is getting developed because we have over extracted from the nature and we have focused upon the money economy, and traditional economy is getting diluted in terms of moving towards money economy, and that is how the thought process is basically. So, you see, we have started moving towards a particular kind of a system wherein everyone would earn more and live their lives happily. But then we realize that we have broken the fabric as far as traditional economies go, and we have over extracted from nature in the meantime. The three economies have become collision course, which the author has tried to demonstrate. So, collision course is the three economies have become worlds in collision, creating major social and environmental challenges facing the planet, but also opening up business opportunities of vast proportions. Author is optimistic, he is a thinker, and he talks about that this whole scenario can be seen with the perspective of optimism, not just with the perspective of that what have we done, exclamation of sort of or question mark of that sort. So, and we can do something about it, as he says, and here is the demonstration. So, on one side developed economies, money economy, emerging economies, this sphere is there, and when you talk about this sphere, so there are elements of develop clean products and technology, lower material and energy consumption. You see, we have been increasing energy consumption. So, either we have to lower that down, or now what we have started doing is we have started focusing upon renewable energy measures at large. Traditional economies associated with foster village based business relationships. So, this economy was relying upon fostering village based business relationships, community based kind of things basically, which we talked about, and we dismantled this kind of a thing as well to an extent. Then nature's economy is associated with ensure sustainable use of nature's economy, wherein rational extraction had to be done, but we sort of over extracted. Now, when these three spheres they come together, the overlap comes in terms of as far as how to some pollution has been generated because we were extracting from nature and we were over consuming, and we were not doing things with the rationality and so on. Then poverty had to be addressed basically somehow, and then there is depletion in terms of as far as the resources goes. So, poverty, depletion, pollution are the questions when we are talking about unharmonious situation associated with the three economies basically. The author talks about that how to generate harmony between these three spheres so that we can live a long, prosperous, opulent, healthy life. Now, he says that reduce pollution burdens, which we have created. We have dismantled the traditional economy fabric, extracted from nature and enhanced, focused upon developing the economies in terms of as far as money economy goes. So, pollution has been created for because of that. So, now we have to reduce the pollution. Then build the skills of the poor and the dispossessed. Somehow we overlooked the poverty element, people who could fall in the line in terms of race goes and they could participate in the race, they kept on earning. People who got left were left behind, somehow we overlooked them, although we broke the traditional economy fabric. People were living happy, self-sustained lives in terms of being supported by their communities and supporting their communities with their skills, and that was a harmonious economic system which we have seen and we have observed in due course of time. So, that is where we broke that somehow. Now, poverty is the resultant. So, we have to build the skills of the poor and the dispossessed, as the author says. So, because this is an overlapping situation. Then there is a depletion of resources. Now, when we talk about depletion of resources, it's an important thing which author says that we have to address this with the replenishment of depleted resources. So, we have over extracted in terms of fossil fuel goes hydroelectric and several other kinds of, these are just examples, and that is why I have been repeatedly saying that now we have started strongly going for renewable energy, which also we should be using with lots of caution and check, because although renewable energy sources are immense, but then the processes which we are generating around renewable energy are questionable to an extent. Experts can only comment upon that. I am no expert on this, but you know better. So, that is where the whole situation is demonstrated by the author. Now, there is a collision course. In the traditional economy, massive infrastructure development projects, dams, irrigation projects, mining operations, highways and power stations, often aided by agencies, banks and corporations in developed countries, have provided access to raw materials. Unfortunately, such development has often had devastating consequences for nature's economy and has tended to have little benefit to those in the traditional economy. That is, we were just briefly talking about. The collision between the three economies leads to the thought process of combating them and reducing these collisions through sustainable practices. We extracted lot of iron and iron ore for developing iron, manufactured steel. We converted everything into we developed huge infrastructure, and next thing what kind of depleting effect we went for, there is no need for me to mention that. We produced huge levels of electricity. We are not supposed to reiterating these kind of things, because we all understand what happened because of the measures which we talked about. We generated lots of products and waste and disposed that waste into rivers and sea. Today we all know what has happened. So, that is precisely what I am referring to, and authors have talked about and wondered about how to look at it. Now, the thought process which is associated with as far as this whole situation goes, first thing as a proposition which the author mentions about reducing corporate footprint in developed markets. We have grown too big, Now you must actually rationalize that. That is what he intends to say. The corporate footprint is extremely high in the consumer economy of developed markets. To identify sustainability related opportunities in the developed consumer economy, managers should therefore ask these questions. Now, he is talking about corporate organizations which should rationalize their thought. The thought process is associated with one very important thing. And why is it important? All the organizations, they wish to live a very long life. How would you live a long life? By sustaining yourself. How would you sustain yourself? By rationalizing everything to an extent wherein you are acceptable by whole of this world for whatever you are doing. And that would only happen if you will contribute in the sustainability of this world largely, and we have talked about that. So, managers should therefore ask these questions. Are most of our technological advances incremental instead of breakthrough? How can our service content be dramatically increased? Where can we remove material content from our products? What can we reduce? Does our core technology hold us back from making significant reductions in the footprint? Should we be making fundamental, radical technological changes? Can our waste be utilized productively in other processes? You would have heard of circular economies, you would have heard of several kinds of things when you would have heard of recycling, you would have heard of almost everything. Reducing the footprint, every organization is focusing upon that. They have gone to an extent of reporting that in terms of their accounting and financial declarations and so on, and they have started monitoring that with lots of intensity because everyone wants prosperity and opulence. Now, let us see what further is added by the author. Avoiding collision in emerging markets. So, he says, but here he talks about developed markets, here he talks about emerging markets. Rapid urbanization and industrialization together with increasing demand for products and services are placing intense pressure on ecological and social systems in the emerging economies of developing world, because emerging economies are following the developed world. They had large number of aeroplanes, emerging economies now are requiring large number of aeroplanes. They had huge transportation systems, emerging economies are requiring that because we are moving towards becoming developed economies. So, you see, everyone was focusing upon a linear growth. This is not as far as the other side of fortune at the bottom of the pyramid. Fortune at the bottom of the pyramid is not talking about actually converting everything into a developed kind of a situation with an irrational growth. No, this is complementary to Stuart Hart's concept of capitalism at the crossroad is complementary to fortune at the bottom of the pyramid, including people in the process, eradicating poverty, and from this side rationalizing all the efforts in terms of social and environmental problems and creating a harmonious sphere. Avoiding a collision between rapidly growing demand and diminishing stock of material supply will therefore be the biggest challenge in emerging markets. Avoiding collision in emerging markets, he further adds, to identify sustainability related opportunities in emerging markets, managers should ask these questions. What are those questions? Is it environmentally feasible to triple or quadruple the size of our industry? Should we be neglecting the environment to the extent that we are going in a linear progression? What factors prevent our industry from achieving such growth? Can we meet growing consumer needs without depleting the natural systems on which we depend? Can we develop such kind of material or utilization or recyclability? Whichever way, we have to find that way. And I am very happy to share with you that when Government of India talks about medium, small and micro enterprises, this is a method to do that, to rationalize that linear progression in terms of stupendous growth what organizations were seeing, and then they started looking for further sales and further add-on sales and so on. Here when we go for micro, medium and small enterprises, then smaller market needs and wants are to be catered in a smaller spheres, and that would rationalize things that definitely may have those kind of effects. Can we use emerging markets to develop leapfrog technologies? How can we meet growing needs without exacerbating urban problems? Here I remember what Bapu used to say. He used to say that we should be focusing upon immediate circles of our economy, that is very household based economic development and very micro level economic development. साईं उतना दीजिए जामे कुटुम समाए, मैं भी भूखा ना रहूं साधु भूखा ना जाए. So, I must earn that much which actually suffices my needs and suffices the needs of the society around me and bring opulence and prosperity for all. That is what where Babu has talked about always, and that is what we are resorting to now. Understanding real needs of traditional markets. So, unlike either the developed or the emerging markets, the traditional markets participation in money or formal economy is sparse. Because vibrant small communities in rural areas stem the pressures for mass migration and accompanying social, political and environmental breakdown, focusing on traditional market is both the key to sustainable development and unprecedented business opportunity for visionary firms. That is precisely the point. Understanding real needs of traditional market can be seen with the perspective of the questions which managers should ask. Can our existing products and services be modified to meet the needs of the poor? Fortune at the bottom of the pyramid. Can we apply state of the art sustainable technology to meet the needs of those at the base of the economic pyramid? Absolutely. Have we overlooked market vacuums where needs are fundamentally unmet? How to raise the excess of education for all? Are we blinded by our current business model? Is something actually barring the vision which we should be having, is there any obstruction there? Can we build a customer base that can become more substantial over time? Creative destruction and sustainability. Now this is again a thought which author propels and wants us to think about. Over 50 years ago, economist Joseph Schumpeter coined the term creative destruction to describe the process by which innovative newcomers disrupt established firms. While many economists of 20th century focused on competition within static equilibrium, Joseph Schumpeter emphasized the role of disequilibrium as the driving force of capitalism. A thought wherein innovation can support this thought which we are talking about. That is what author wants us to understand. It is widely acknowledged that the firms capitalizing on Schumpeter's concept of new combinations propel economic growth and transformation. From the coal age to the oil age and now to the information age, each technological shift brings about significant changes in the economic and social landscape, leading to the emergence of new institutions, businesses and development patterns. Further, the author adds, and which is very important, episodes of creative destruction are usually driven by the waves of scientific and technological discovery or major periods of socio-political change. Whole of the world is focusing upon scientific development and technological development. So many things are coming our way from all the sides, and people are trying to bring up newer ways of energy development, newer sources of water and so on. Most existing large corporations evolved in an era of abundant raw materials, cheap energy and seemingly limitless sinks for waste disposal. During the past few decades, however, it has become increasingly clear that many of the technologies developed during this period are unsustainable. Only by replacing many of today's unsustainable technologies with those that are inherently clean, renewable and non-toxic can we make rapid progress towards a sustainable world. And here I would end this thought process from Professor Stuart Hart, which complements Fortune at the bottom of the pyramid, and as well as many of the thought processes which we have been nurturing, which are practically being implemented at this moment around us basically. So, let us look at, he says that there are strategies for greening, continuous improvements, and there are strategies for beyond greening, creative destruction. And he says that strategies for greening focus on existing products, processes, suppliers, customers, shareholders. Characteristics are incremental, continuous improvement, rationalizes industry. Example is responsible care. And strategies for beyond greening, creative destruction, the focus is on emerging technologies, markets, partners, needs, stakeholders. We have to be fundamentally looking at things with a renewed kind of a perspective, and the characteristics are discontinuous creative destruction, restructures industry, whole of the industry can be restructured. Example is biotech revolution. And the point here is that if at all we wish to have a long term strategic thought process to reach to the vision in terms of prosperity and opulence for all the organizations must be looking towards these kind of thought processes to support them in due course of time, not only for checking upon what they have been doing, not only for avoiding complacency, but also getting a fresh look at the world around them, creating a better harmony between environment and their business and contributing meaningfully at large. I will be coming back to you with lots of insights on specific aspects of how development can be seen with freedom's perspective in my next session. Till then, goodbye.